In 2014, Russia's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine was met with international condemnation, but also some acceptance. The world watched as Russia swiftly moved to take control of the peninsula, citing historical ties and the protection of Russian-speaking citizens as justification. Despite the outcry from Western nations and the imposition of sanctions, the annexation was completed with relatively little bloodshed, and Crimea has since been under Russian control. Fast forward to 2022, and Vladimir Putin declared the annexation of 4 more Ukrainian regions: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia. This bold move came amidst an ongoing and brutal conflict between Russian and Ukrainian forces. Putin's announcement was accompanied by grandiose speeches and maps redrawing the borders, but the reality on the ground was far more complex and chaotic. This time, the situation feels markedly different. The annexation of these regions has not been a swift or uncontested process. Instead, it has been marred by intense fighting, significant casualties, and a deeply entrenched resistance from Ukrainian forces determined to reclaim their territory. Unlike Crimea, these annexations have faced fierce Ukrainian resistance and near-universal international condemnation. The global community has rallied more strongly behind Ukraine, providing military aid, economic support, and diplomatic backing. Protests have erupted worldwide, denouncing Russia's actions and calling for an end to the aggression. The hastily organized referendums were dismissed as shams by Ukraine and its Western allies. These votes, conducted under the shadow of military occupation, lacked legitimacy and transparency. Western leaders have been vocal in their rejection of the results, labeling them as a farce and a violation of international law. These regions remain battlegrounds, with Ukrainian forces actively challenging Russian control. The conflict has turned these areas into war zones, with ongoing skirmishes, artillery bombardments, and a humanitarian crisis unfolding as civilians are caught in the crossfire. The attempt to replicate Crimea's annexation has faltered, exposing the limits of Russia's military power. Unlike the relatively smooth takeover of Crimea, the annexation of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia has been anything but straightforward. Russian forces have faced logistical challenges, supply issues, and fierce resistance from a well-motivated Ukrainian military. The annexation decree contrasts sharply with the ongoing conflict on the ground. While political leaders in Moscow may declare these regions as part of Russia, the reality is a stark and violent struggle for control. The situation remains fluid, with the potential for further escalation and a long, drawn-out conflict that shows no signs of resolution. The international community has overwhelmingly rejected Russia's annexation of the 4 Ukrainian regions. The United Nations General Assembly voted resoundingly to condemn the annexation. Western powers swiftly imposed new sanctions, targeting Russia's economy. The annexation drew condemnation from traditional Western allies and countries previously closer to Moscow. India expressed deep concern, while China refrained from endorsing the move. The near-universal condemnation reflects global alarm at Russia's actions. The diplomatic fallout is likely to have long-term consequences for Russia's international standing. Despite the Kremlin's pronouncements, Russia's control over the annexed territories remains tenuous. Ukrainian forces continue to wage fierce resistance, liberating territory and inflicting heavy losses on Russian troops. The front lines remain fluid, with intense fighting for key towns and cities. The annexation declarations have galvanized Ukrainian resistance. Reports emerge daily of partisan attacks on Russian forces. The Kremlin's attempts to impose its rule have been met with widespread resistance. The ongoing conflict underscores the fallacy of Russia's annexation claims. Gauging the true sentiments of the population in the annexed regions is complex. The layers of emotions and opinions are deeply intertwined with the history and ongoing strife. Years of conflict and Russian propaganda have created a climate of fear and uncertainty. The relentless bombardment of information and misinformation has left many unsure of what to believe. Public pronouncements of loyalty often mask the true complexities of opinion. In many cases, these displays are driven by fear of retribution rather than genuine support. Some residents may have welcomed the annexation, but many remain skeptical of Moscow's intentions. The promises of stability and prosperity are weighed against the harsh realities they face daily. The brutal realities of the conflict and economic hardship have soured many on Russian rule. The destruction of homes, the scarcity of resources, and the constant threat of violence overshadow any potential benefits. The Kremlin's portrayal of the annexation as a liberation is met with skepticism. The narrative of freedom and protection clashes with the lived experiences of those in the conflict zones. The true sentiments of the people remain largely hidden, a testament to the human cost of the conflict. The silence and somber faces speak volumes about the unspoken fears and hopes of the population. Section 5. Crimea and now, a study in contrasts. The events that unfolded in Crimea in 2014 and the recent developments in Ukraine present a stark juxtaposition, revealing the complexities and evolving dynamics of geopolitical conflicts. The annexation of Crimea in 2014, while condemned by the international community, unfolded relatively smoothly. The region saw a swift transition of power with minimal immediate conflict or bloodshed. Russia swiftly established control, leveraging its military presence and exploiting pro-Russian sentiments among the local population. These strategic and political maneuvers were executed with precision, ensuring a quick consolidation of power. The annexation was presented as a fait accompli, a done deal that the world had to accept despite widespread condemnation and sanctions from Western nations. The 2022 annexations stand in stark contrast. Unlike the relatively smooth takeover of Crimea, the recent attempts to annex more Ukrainian territories have been fraught with intense conflict and international backlash. Russia's military campaign has bogged down in the face of fierce Ukrainian resistance. The Ukrainian forces, bolstered by international support, have mounted a formidable defense, turning the conflict into a protracted and bloody struggle. The Kremlin's attempts to install puppet governments have been met with defiance. Ukrainian civilians have shown remarkable resilience and unity, standing up against the occupation with protests and acts of civil disobedience. The annexation has become a bloody quagmire. The ongoing conflict has resulted in significant casualties, widespread destruction, and a humanitarian crisis, with countless civilians caught in the crossfire. The differences highlight the miscalculations that have plagued Putin's Ukraine adventure. The initial confidence has given way to a complex and costly conflict, underscoring the unpredictable nature of war and the resilience of the Ukrainian spirit. Section 6. The economic quicksand, sanctions and instability. The annexation has further isolated Russia economically, deepening the impact of Western sanctions. Sanctions have targeted key sectors of the economy, including finance, energy, and technology. The European Union has moved to wean itself off Russian energy, while the United States imposed stringent export controls. The economic fallout is likely to exacerbate Russia's dire economic situation. The Kremlin's attempts to mitigate the impact of sanctions have yielded limited results. The economic quicksand threatens to engulf Putin's regime. Section 7. The information war, competing narratives. The annexation has intensified the information war alongside the military conflict. Russia's state-controlled media portrays the annexation as a liberation. Ukraine and its Western allies counter with narratives highlighting Russia's aggression and war crimes. The information war has spilled into the digital realm, with both sides deploying disinformation campaigns. Social media platforms have become battlegrounds for competing narratives. The battle for the narrative has profound implications for how the conflict is perceived. Section 8. The human cost, displacement and suffering. The annexation is the latest chapter in a conflict that has inflicted immense human suffering. Millions of Ukrainians have been displaced, seeking refuge in safer parts of the country or abroad. The annexation is likely to exacerbate the humanitarian crisis. The conflict has taken a devastating toll on civilian infrastructure. The annexation impedes access to humanitarian aid. The human cost extends beyond immediate casualties, encompassing long-term scars. The international community faces a moral imperative to provide humanitarian assistance. Section 9, the long game strategic deadlock. Russia appears determined to hold on to the annexed territories. Ukraine, bolstered by Western support, shows no signs of abandoning its fight. The conflict appears to be settling into a protracted war of attrition. The annexation has solidified the strategic deadlock. The prospect of a negotiated solution appears even more remote. The conflict risks becoming a frozen conflict with simmering tensions. Section 10. A legacy of discord, reshaping the regional landscape. The annexation represents a watershed moment in post-Cold War European history. Russia's actions have shattered the illusion of a stable European security order. The annexation has reshaped the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe. The conflict has accelerated the eastward expansion of NATO. The annexation has created a legacy of mistrust and hostility. The consequences will continue to shape the region's dynamics for generations. Section 11. A Gamble Unraveling. Putin's decision to annex 4 Ukrainian regions appears increasingly like a gamble unraveling. The annexation has failed to achieve its primary objectives. Instead, it has galvanized Ukrainian resistance and unified international condemnation. The annexation has exposed Russia's vulnerabilities. The consequences of Putin's gamble will continue to shape Russia's destiny for years to come.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.